be seen as trying to end a freedom of speech that existed simply because one particular group was there right now. We wanted to be sensitive to that. But I think if everybody sits back and thinks about it, our rules and our laws were inadequate. And this administration, whenever it's found inadequate, improper, or unfair rules, has tried to change them for the better for the future. And I think that the huge gap in the law in this area was the fact that it seemed to imply that tents could be set up on public space and continue to be there indefinitely at the will of a particular interest group. And I think if you think about that a minute, that's not a workable operative principle. There have to be rules that regulate the time of use and the type of use. Otherwise, it all becomes distorted and exaggerated and unfair to others who would like to take advantage of the public space for the same or similar or for recreational purposes. So I would think that all interest groups, all free speech proponents would want to have rules that were fair to everybody, and our rules are not fair to everybody. There was a gap in our rules.
Have you had complaints from the public about the encampment?
About what?
About the encampment, about the Occupy Lincoln? I mean, have people been calling the police or the mayor's office saying, you know, when?
Sure. Isn't that a natural thing in our society?
A lot.
I mean, unfortunately, most people don't look to the principle first. They look to the cause first. And if they agree with the cause, then they tend to think that whatever that group's doing is okay. And if they don't agree with the cause, then they want them out of there right away. And so it is with Occupy Lincoln. So it would be with any other group that feels strongly about change that needs to happen, in their opinion, in society. But I don't think that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to maximize the opportunities for free speech, but to do it in such a way that it's equal for all, and it coincides with and blends with recreational opportunities and the aesthetics in the city, as the people of the city would blend those different interests. Obviously, free speech is the most important, but free speech doesn't mean you can build a house on the mall or do things that are exaggerated in nature and destructive to other interests, or which take up all the time and leave no time for somebody else. There are a whole bunch of things that are to be thought about, I think, in deriving a fair law. And ours was not fair, and we were caught with a law that had a gap in it, and we fixed it. And we tried to do it in such a way as to be respectful to the group that happened to be the one that brought the gap to our attention.
Mayor, do you happen to agree with the goals of Occupy Wall Street, or which position on what they're fighting for?
You know, I'm really disappointed in you, Dina. You know, I have a 24-year legislative record, and you haven't looked back at it. You know the answer.
I would think so, but I want to hear you say it.
Check the record, Dina.
Okay, I have another question. You served in the military for a few years, about the time I was being born, and you fought for our freedoms, or you served for our freedoms. Have you thought about that in conjunction with this?
Sure. There's no good American that doesn't think about freedom and the extent of freedom and the limitations on freedom. And, you know, by and large, most of the time when we choose to limit freedom, and we do it very reluctantly, it has to do when other people's freedom are limited by your freedom. You know, we're all in this together. We gotta work out rules that work for everybody.
Of course, there seems to be some, I guess, some of the protesters were saying that there were two things about the city that they said lied about. Number one was that, I guess, they were told they had to move the camp, but they could move someplace else. They were under the impression they could move someplace else. And the other one was that you would take away equipment, but you would leave the people there. You know, that the police wouldn't remove people. Were those misunderstandings, or what happened there? Why would they let you believe that, you know, number one, that there could be another place they could move to, and number two, that, you know, you were only going to take equipment and not remove people?
Yeah. It's the first I've heard of the second. I have heard of the first objection. And I guess I would have to put it in the category of a misunderstanding, because we don't believe that we made representations in either of those areas whatsoever. If they believe that, then there indeed has been a misunderstanding. Keep in mind that they have really worked well with the city. They've tried very hard, but so has the city. And this negotiation and discussion and talk has gone on between the mayor's office and Occupy Lincoln, the police department and Occupy Lincoln, and the health department and Occupy Lincoln. Many conversations with many different individuals. And the whole process is made more difficult in this instance, not because of the individuals in Occupy Lincoln, but because the nature of the organization of necessity is ad hoc and involves a general assembly that really can't control all of its members, and the conversations are not controlled, and so it's a more difficult forum to avoid misunderstanding in. But the reason again that we could never agree to allowing them to go one place to another is that same gap in the law that I discussed before.
And in Congress, how do you answer those critics that said you've been over way too far, you know, for this particular group, and you should have backed down a lot earlier?
Well, you know, I think those critics might think differently if they were on a different side of this current issue. I think it's probably ironic that a great many of those people who would be critics in this instance are those who would advocate